Python gives us some ways of getting more information about a module. Um, if you're using somebody else's module, the nice thing about most modules that are created and published out there is that they come with excessive documentation. I didn't say extensive, I said excessive. And I really mean that. It's most of the time way more than you actually need. If you look up something like the random module on Google, let's just say you Google it, you're going to find a lot of information. In fact, the information that you're going to find is probably way more than you ever wanted to hear about random number generation. But that module is there. The other way that you can get a little bit of information about what things a module contains is by using a function called directory. So if I import the random module, like we've been doing, and I say print the directory for random, then what it's going to give me, it doesn't really explain how to use the functions of random, which would be nice. What it shows me is what's in that module. And what's in that module is actually surprisingly way more than we've been using. So if I say import random, and then I say print directory random, just like that, let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so here is a massive side-scrolling list of all of the things that are in random. And they're presented in the same order. So I'm going to help you make sense of these in just a second. But before I get to that, I want to point something out to you. What is it that I'm looking at here? I printed one line, one thing, and this is what I got. Take a look at this bracket right here. Tell me what that means that this is. What's that? A list, right? Yeah, it's a list. So if I don't like side scrolling through a massive list of things, which I don't, the other thing I can do with this is I can treat it like any other list and I can iterate through it in dr random print str item. Now at least it's going to print them vertically. So there we go. So now I iterate through each item and print it. Now it's a little easier for us to see what's going on. Now, what we have are things in capital letters, mostly here. The first part of this list is constants. When we see things in all caps like that, it's a constant, which means it's a variable that doesn't change. And when I see something like this, where it's capitalized first letter, that indicates that it's an object. So we have objects and constants. Now, most of these constants are used internally for the random functions. So you don't really need to use them or know what they do. You don't need to worry about it too much. Next up, you'll see a whole bunch of variables or names that have an underscore or even two underscores at the beginning of them. These are special variables. A lot of times they are related to the fact that this is a module. They're automatically generated. In some cases, they were generated specifically for use inside this module. Most of the time, you don't need to interact with them. You don't need to worry about them. Now, if you get into really, really advanced Python programming, you will use some of these special variables. And we're going to use similar variables in another part of this class, but not yet. But once you get past all of those, then you get into all of these lowercase words. Now, these are the methods of this library or this module. These are the functions that live in that module. And you'll see choice. We've used random.choice a lot. We've also seen random integer. Okay, so those are a couple of things that we've used already in this class. So you can get an idea of what's in this module. It doesn't really tell you much about how to use that module. So that part of it is a little bit boring. But here's another trick, and I'm sorry because I can't make this text any bigger. I can barely read it on my own screen. But if I hover my mouse over random on the import statement, it'll pop up this little window that tells me some more information about random. And if I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, there's a link that says random on docs.python.org. If I click that, there's my too much information. Now I can learn about everything random does, how it works, why it works, and every single method or function in random is listed here. Okay, so here's randint, and it tells you how to use that function, what goes in, what comes out, all of the information that you need to use that. So if you really want to find out how to use a method or a function in a module or library, this is the official documentation for that online. And most of our core modules in Python are documented that way in PyCharm so that you can just find that information very easily. So there's one more thing that you can do that is sort of a helpful thing to do. And if I want to find out what is in random, what are the methods? If I maybe can't remember the name, like randint, doesn't make sense to me, I can just type random in PyCharm and hit a period, and you'll see that those things pop up. And I have the objects in there, and I have the methods in there as well. Now, you won't see the special variables because those aren't really usable in this way, but all of the things that I would intend to use are here and easily accessible. Okay, so that's another way to find out a little bit more information. So there's lots of different ways you can find out what's in a module that's been created already. So that's helpful in terms of using modules.